economy has moved from a high-speed growth stage to a high-quality development stage, moving Chinese industries up to the media high end of the global value chain and fostering a number of world-class advanced manufacturing clusters is part of China's strategic planning. However, the world we live in it's undergoing tremendous challenges and changes unseen for a century. The pandemic, the war, the ongoing economic sanctions, the economic crisis have profoundly disrupted and reshaped the global industrial chain, supply chain, and value chain. China's pathway to integrate itself into the existing world market, currently dominated by multinationals, in a bid to achieve an industrial upgrade, is facing challenges. So where is China in global value chain, and where China will be, and what kind of difference it will bring to the European and the global economy at large? I believe those questions will be answered and discussed by our guests today, but we always believe part of the keys or solutions is always cooperation, collaboration, and an open mind. And this is what the EU Tech Chamber China Alliance is dedicated to fulfill. So our mission for China Alliance is to build bridges for Chinese and European business cultures, promote the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals in China through European know-how, and help European companies achieve successful expansion in the Chinese market. To achieve those objectives, we are organizing digital events, networking meetings, high-level summits, leading delegations to China. So we welcome you to join the China Alliance so you can keep yourself informed of the great opportunities available. Last but not least, thank you again for participating and wish a great success of the webinar. Thank you. Back to Michaela.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sami, for the webinar. And welcome all of you. Now I will introduce you very shortly the Tech Chamber, what exactly we are doing and which pro we have. And know if you can see my screen. Can you see? Federico, please let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Hello?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Yeah, I will just do full screen and so short back. We were founded in 2015 as an NGO. On this slide, you can see our three major goals that are competitiveness, growth, and sustainability. Competitiveness means that we are trying to strengthen and promote European technologies and values, grow, and trying to access opportunities in Europe and emerging markets, and also help our advocates to access those. And sustainability means that we are trying to reach SDGs through European technologies. And we believe that the technology is the key to reach them. On the next slide, you can see the structure of the chamber. So we are divided in different.
We cannot see the next slide.
You can divide in three different categories.
Michaela, we lost your presentation. We cannot see your presentation.
Okay, thank you for letting me know. Let me try to reconnect. Otherwise, we will do that without the presentation. So we'll try to share again. I don't know why I cannot share my screen, but maybe.
In fact, we also cannot see you.
Maybe
we also cannot see you.
Okay, someone blocked me, but no problem. I can tell you more about the we will share with you in our public chat. Then you can have a look with pictures. How does it look like? But the structure, I can tell you more about that. So we are divided in regional alliances, impact alliances, and tech alliances. The regional alliances are more focused on the region. So for example, if you are interested to learn more about business in China or technology in China, where we are even today in the China Alliance webinar, then you can reach the China Alliance or Germany Alliance. Then we have impact alliances. They're more focused on impact, like Finance Alliance, Women in Tech, and Climate Action. The third group are tech alliances. They're more focused on tech topics like smart cities, digital transformation, and environment. We have our toolbox as well. So it's mean, on one hand, we are trying to share the knowledge through different publications like white papers that are recommendations for the industry, position papers, recommendations for the government, and also Visions for Europe, which is our magazine. We will share with you the link. You can have a look. You can register and just write article and publish article with us. On the other hand, we are supporting net.
We lost her, right?
Right.
Yeah, same as I lost my camera today. I don't know what happened, but before Ron had some problem with his camera. Right now I cannot switch on my camera, and we are also having problems with Michaela's. So anyway, sorry for that inconvenience, and I will be happy to share after the webinar to anyone more information, of course, about the UTech and more details about our organization. Thank you anyway, Michaela, for your time and for your presentation. Also to Tammy for this welcome speech. And well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us today in this digital event that we are sure will be very interesting for all of us to have a better understanding of a very important topic, such as China's position at the global value chain, and also of the challenges and business opportunities related to the current economical and political situation that the country offers to foreign companies. I invite you all to share with us your questions about this topic. You can write, hello?
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, you can, of course, write your questions at the Q&A section of this meeting room, on the chat of this meeting room. Later, I will pick up some of those questions to ask them to our panelists. Please don't wait until the end of the panel to send your questions. You can do it anytime starting now. Today, we are honored with the presence of 4 great panelists, all of them with huge experience in business development, advisory, and of course, in China. I am sure they will offer us different points of view about today's topic, sharing with us a great vision of the current situation, trends, challenges, and opportunities in China, and also telling us, in their opinion, where the country is heading. Please let me introduce you Mr. Ron Keller, an experienced expert on international financial, economic, and geopolitical matters. He is advisor and lecturer at the University of Groningen, the University of Leiden, Webster University, and the Mandeville Academy. He is ambassador of the European Senate of Economy and Technology and member of advisory boards of the UTech Chamber, the Center for Russian Studies, and Euro Defense Netherlands. Ron served as a Netherlands ambassador to Ukraine, the Russian Federation, Turkey, and China between 2005 and 2017, and as Director General at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, responsible for the Dutch Official Development Cooperation Program between 2000 and 2005. Earlier, at the Ministry of Finance, he was Director for Foreign Financial Relations and Director for Export, Credit, Insurance, and Investment Warranties. Ron was a founding team member of the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development and served in the first executive board of the Multilateral Bank in London. At the European Union in Brussels, he chaired the committee that set up the euro currency system. He holds a master's degree in economic sciences from University of Amsterdam, cum laude, and is also a member, as I said, of our UTEX China Alliance Advisory Board. Our second panelist is Christy Zhao, who runs Resol, a Beijing-based strategic firm, not only a team of technology communication experts, but also the bridge for global entrepreneurs and the China ecosystem. They partner with disruptive companies of all sizes to build creative, results-drive programs that shape reputations and drive business goals, focusing on semiconductor, AI, robotics, autonomous vehicles, and renewable energies. Prior to her own company, she used to be the head of Asia-Pacific marketing communication for Samsung Electronics. Today, also joins us Lucy Luo, partner and managing director at Simeone Consulting Group. Lucy held various senior and leading positions in financial consulting and public accounting. She has served as a senior professional at the former division of PwC in Los Angeles and leading Chinese financial advisor firms providing management, consulting, business advisory, financial and tax planning solutions, as well as investment consulting services for companies, foreign and local companies, cross industries, as well as high net worth professionals. Lucy holds an MSc in Finance and Accounting from California, and also an MSc in Business Administration from Beijing Technology and Business University. She has her professional credentials as CMA, CSCA, and Data Science. Last but not least, please let me introduce you Stefan Horvath, with over 20 years of international C-level experience in working for network agencies and consulting firms. As founder of Aviation, a marketing firm focusing on investor relations, he advises tech clients and tech funds on business and innovation strategies. Previously, Stefan worked as CEO President of IPG Digital and Media Services, responsible for building relationships with international clients and corporations. The emergence of the new Silk Road, which encompasses the growing mobility, trade, and cultural links across China, the Middle East, India, Africa, and Europe, is enabling new pathways of cultural exchange, global business innovation, and investment. His business innovation culture is not only a critical commercial imperative, but defines the DNA of the organization, going far beyond just international growth. He holds a master's degree in economics and computer science from the Technical University of Stuttgart in Germany, and is a frequent keynote speaker at international conferences, congresses, and universities. So after this brief but very impressive introduction, let's start with the panel discussion. And we are going to start with Ron. Ron, good morning. What impact will a slowdown of world economic growth and increased energy and food prices have on the Chinese economic prospects?
Yeah, thank you very much, Federico, and very grateful to be here. It's a very interesting subject. A lot of it is still, let's say, work in progress. It's always like that in the economy. It's an ongoing process. But I think nowadays, with all respect to all of our knowledge that we have gathered, I mean, it's very hard to, this is a huge disclaimer which I put forward, I realize that. But it's very, very uncertain what will happen in the coming period. Nevertheless, in that uncertainty, I will try to give share some thoughts about it. You know, China is hit by basically by three, I wouldn't say shocks, but by three challenges. And the first challenge is and it was mentioned already, China's ambition captured in its current five-year plan to move from high speed growth to high quality growth. The big challenge to that is how to do that. Now I know that the growth level ambition has been tuned more to a sustainable level, which is probably healthy. Still, in order to, in the longer run, make the transition towards a high added value, high quality growth, you need to basically, China puts all its cards on innovation. And to cut a long story short, I mean, China's history and tradition and culture is not specifically geared towards innovation. We have to be honest in that respect. It's going to be a challenge for China to move up the innovation rankings and to really be a leader. In order to do so, and it's not my wisdom, but just look at IMF, World Bank, and other reports on it. They all advocate that China gives more space to market forces and gives more space to individual creativity and freedom to think out of the box, to innovate. These are exactly the success factors that make innovation countries that are good at innovation successful. Now, on these two scores, China has the current 5-year plan has very little ambition, unfortunately. So you wonder, you can of course proclaim that you want to move towards an innovative economy, but if you don't put the policy measures to it, it's going to be a challenge. So that's challenge number one. Then on top of that, as we all know, the COVID crisis affected also China. Initially, China fared quite well due to the fact that in this typical China, it's wonderfully flexible, fast moving. It instantly moved not only to curb the COVID breakout domestically, but it also moved towards producing some materials that the world badly needed, like mouth masks and cotton sticks and what have you. This gave, surprisingly or not, but it gave China actually an enormous boost in the economy. And if you see the COVID years, the whole world was collapsing economically. China actually fared fairly well. However, and here comes the second challenge that China faces. My assessment is that the current, the previous COVID strategy of zero tolerance towards any breakout of COVID is now going to cut into the flesh of China. I mean, you see with the big lockdowns in Shanghai and Beijing, and what's more to come, there seems to be no exit from further lockdowns and lockdowns and lockdowns and lockdowns. And if you keep your country in lockdowns, obviously supply chain, value chain, transport routes, everything gets distorted to a large extent. So that is the second challenge, how to get out of this current COVID policy. This initially did well in China, but I think China should much more now let go and find some balance between protecting the people and at the same time giving space also for the virus to go around and for people to incur some kind of an immunity for it. Now, and then the third challenge, it's the big elephant in the room, I guess, but I cannot go around it. It's of course the war in Ukraine. I mean, the Russian invasion in Ukraine, I will not say too much about it, but it is, of course, a deplorable and dramatic and unacceptable, in my view, action of Russia. It was induced by all kinds of factors. I will certainly put the hand in my own bosom as well. I mean, the Western countries, NATO, played a very substantive role in creating the conflict. Nevertheless, starting a war, killing people, is not of these times. Now, apart from that value judgment, which I want to share with you, we all see now, and just look at the recent IMF, again, the IMF estimates, you see a slowdown of economic growth. A slowdown of economic growth of actually quite still modest for this year and coming year. But China's economic performance is hit much stronger but due to the war in Ukraine than other regions and other parts of the globe. Also, the inflationary effect on China are higher than on average, globally speaking. And why is that? It's very simple. China is a net importer of energy and food, and these are precisely the two commodities that will rise in price. And And furthermore, China's performance obviously is also affected by the slowdown of the global economy, China still being very much an export-led economy. So I see three challenges. One, how to really bring innovation, stepping up innovation. Two, how to get out of the lockdown of COVID. And three, how to stop the war in Ukraine, because that's the only way that commodity prices will go down and the world economy starts to grow again. On all of these three, China government could play a role actually, but I'm afraid it shows very little signs of activity. Let me stop here.
Thank you so much, Ron. Amazing. Listen what you say and how you say it. Thank you so much. I remind to all of you guys, to all the speakers, that whenever you want to intervene, whenever you want to participate or add something, say something, please just do it. Otherwise, we are going to continue with our schedule. Christy, good afternoon for you because you are in China. Where China used to be in the global value chain?
Hi, Federico. I think a lot of people want to talk about China. China has been known as a low-wage economy, supplying raw materials and intermediate export with high-tech economies in return of imports of high value added and high-tech goods and services. But I think the effect was the establishment of the three great high-tech production hubs in North America, Europe, and East Asia, with China playing an increasingly important role over the period, sort of furnishing the East Asia hub and other parts of the world with low and mid-tech goods and services. So I think Asia, with China as its center, became gradually the principal factory of the world. That's where China used to be. But now, if we talk about what has changed, if it's okay for me to go to the second one, Federico, I think, in my opinion, COVID, it's actually accelerated the change from globalization to regionalization, just in my opinion. As we could see and hear from the news that some of the productions are reshoring or nearshoring, we find global companies run one supply chain in order to serve a massive Chinese market and a separate supply chain to serve a non-Chinese market. So I think throughout this whole process of the COVID, just to echo back on what Ron has to say about the country have to deal with the COVID situation, I think with every country that have the population of 1.4 billion people, we kind of don't really have a choice whether it's a hard lockdown or it's an open country, because it just have, so we just have to find a balance. There's no win-win situation. To be honest, if we decide to open everything, there will be more cases. The hospital will go into a massive craziness of no one will be able to work as well. So I think currently, I heard a lot of people keep talking about the net zero, the zero COVID movement currently going on in China. But I wanted to tell everyone, I'm actually based in Beijing. I believe Lucy is also based in Beijing. So what's happening here in Beijing, it's actually not the zero cases. We kind of lock the buildings. Whenever there's a building is detected with a confirmed cases, that individual building will enter a lockdown for 14 days until it goes down to zero cases, and then we'll move on to different sectors in the area until it gets lower and lower. So I think this is the current situation that is going on here inside of China. Some of the factory is still going. We understand what's the situation is in Shanghai. It's not very pleasant, but it is what it is. I think everyone is trying their best to get back to what it's like in 2019. However, we do realize that we're going into a new era. We're evolving into something that is a little bit different at the moment.
Thank you, Christy. I could see that you also mention one of the 3 points that Ron mentioned before, these lockdowns and this COVID situation that, of course, is also making for all of us working with or in China or together with China very difficult times right now, because this is damaging not only the countries or China as a country, but also all the professionals like us, all of us, that we are trying to do our best, as you mentioned, Christy, to do our jobs and to, but well, situation is as it is, and yeah, it's difficult. So let's go for one question to Lucy. Lucy, good afternoon. Also for you, as Christy mentioned, you are also based in Beijing. What is China's current status at the point of reshaping of global value chain?
Thank you. And, I agree with Christy. At present, the global value chains are being reshaped, and we are seeing a big shift from the globalization to regionalization. And the global value chain is transforming from the trade and the financial capital driven to an era driven by the digital economy. And countries are aiming to develop new economic drivers and protect their comparative advantages and trade route and market share and foreign interest from attack. And the new value driver more specifically are like the digital transformation driven by the climate change, decarbonization, green tech innovation, productivity improvement by the AI, and also the sustainability development of our supply chain. And the China market has become one of the most important markets for global capital due to its huge scale and consumption capacity and the complete industrial system and continuous optimized business environment. At present, China is at the point of value chain transformation and upgrading, as well as economic constructural adjustment. And it's shifting from to producing basic products to invent new technology, develop capitalism, fund education and research and development, and improving productivity and grow economy output, develop infrastructure and raising share of the world trade. And Chinese currency yuan is also increasingly used internationally. And also in terms of the manufacturing and research findings shows that China's high-tech manufacturing industry have the highest external dependence and more responsive to the change in the global current situation, which contains the risk that China is insufficient in original and independent innovation. And the cost advantage, as mentioned by Ron and Christy, in low-end production is gradually replaced by the developing countries in Southeast Asia and other places like Africa. So not in an advantage in both the absolute low cost of labors and the high level of technology, China's high-tech industry may face the risk of being extruded from the global value chain. And recognize the importance of rising the domestic demand and reducing reliance on their foreign productions and technology, and upgrade local companies' competitiveness and in the high-tech driven productivity and research, and thus to climb to the end of the chain on both sides of the spiral curve. So along the Belt and Road Initiative countries, the technology gap, especially in the high-end field such as 5G and AI, between China and developing countries is narrowing. And China has the core ability to lead the regional value chain. And the regionalization is a key trend in the ongoing global value chain restructuring, and the development of regional value chain take place through the free trade agreements such as the RCEP, which covers 15 countries in Asia and Australia. And China's finance and insurance, transportation and storage and telecommunication industry have the comparative advantages in the global value chain. And also the status of China's financial service industry also, in the competitive international market is rising rapidly and moving to the upstream of the global value chain. Among them, mobile payment, internet finance are in the leading position of the global financial industry. Yes.
Thank you so much, Lucy. Now, what we need to get is that China opens again, because so many advantages and so many, let's say, values that China can provide, but we need to be able to, again, enter in China. Let's see when we can get this. Good morning, Stefan. Thank you again for joining us today. COVID created, and we have been speaking, or the speakers already have been speaking a little bit about that, but the COVID created an environment to rethink globalization and the global value chain. Will post-COVID increase China's speed in moving up the value chain?
Yes, so thank you. We just discussed lockdowns, we just discussed the immediate impact of COVID. And I don't want to touch that. I want to look now more at the macro picture. What will, I think, very likely, or what I see would very likely happen throughout this. And then let's look one thing back. So China was, in the last 30 years, growing up the ladder. The country was coming from a purely, or from a strongly agricultural driven economy, yeah, towards more modern manufacturing and now also technology-driven country from that. That all started with the initiative, with the initial ideas of Deng Xiaoping when he started to bringing in new ideas into the economic system. And as the speakers mentioned before, China was the world factory, a workbench, yeah. So it was created to use cheap labor that was existing, also not so much 20, 30 years back, high educated labor force, yeah, to assemble products in the high-tech industry. And so China was working mainly for the countries around, the neighboring countries, they assembled the products. Over the time, there was a kind of development. So China was moving definitely up the value chain ladder. And what is also important is to see, we talked about supply chain and we talk about value chain, right? And where we have at the moment the problems is the supply chain because of something doesn't work. It's more the logistic stuff, yeah? But that doesn't affect instantly the value chain, because the value chain is tied to so much more than just connectivity and transportation. It is connected to resources, and resources means you need to have the capital to develop. Resources means human resources and high education. When you look at the university stuff that is done, there is definitely a way higher base than it was in the past, yeah? And that will lead, and COVID initiated that, to an exit of some companies working currently in China. And I predict what the exit will be are the sneakers. Just to come up with a bit bold example. It will be the sneakers, it will be the t-shirts, it will be whatever is in the lower value and whatever is already or was previously to COVID already moving to other countries. Yeah, it will hardly be, yeah, artificial intelligence. It will hardly be robotics. Yeah, it will hardly be any kind of manufacturing that goes on, because in these industries, yeah, a lot of money is flowing in from, backed by the government, backed by large corporations, and also by money coming from outside, yeah, to develop that. So and this goes along with the way higher level of education we have right now in these countries. And I mentioned AI and I mentioned robotics, and I also said low-level value chain products will fade out of the countries. But what is also happening and just look at the 5 years plan. Yeah, the ambitious plans in the chip industry. Yeah, don't tell me that this is low-level value chain, right? So that is high-end value chain products. And if China, yeah, is successful with this in the next 5 years, yeah, that gives definitely the boost for even moving up more in the value chain level than it was in the last years. So I think the influence we have with COVID and also the exit from some companies, right, will increase the level of the value chain value in total. So that is what I believe, because it will be continuing producing higher valued goods. That is space industry, that is aviation, that is automotive, name it. My 2 cents for that.
Thank you, Stefan, a lot. Ron, what, and Stefan has been speaking a little bit about that right now, but what will be the macroeconomic impact on world economic growth and global inflation?
Yeah, let me first say that I agree with Stefan's analysis on the shifting composition of the value added capacity of China. It doesn't mean necessarily that China's total value read economic GDP will continue to grow as fast as in the past. I think this is also acknowledged by the authorities by going for a slower, sustainable growth rate. So that as such is probably very healthy. Nevertheless, I repeat, in order to maintain also in the longer run this higher added value production sectors, the robotics, the artificial intelligence, even there, you cannot sit on your hands and think that you're forever going to produce that. You continuously compete with other countries. Therefore, innovation is not something that you do once and then you sit back and relax. It's a continuous process. And this is what worries me, because I don't see the Chinese authorities stimulating the drivers for innovation enough. But okay, I made that point already, and I'm not the Chinese authorities, neither of us. But if I were the Chinese policymakers, I would put more effort into really stimulating internally, organically from within the drivers for innovation, as I mentioned, market forces, decentralization, more freedom for the individual entrepreneur and researcher to think out of the box. But you asked me something completely different, Federico. You asked me about the global impact. Well, if you I mentioned already, IMF and World Bank mentioned recently that's the most reliable source if it comes to estimations of the world economy. One sees the world economy as a whole going down in compared, not down. The COVID, of course, gave a shock, but we're talking about how the world economic outlook looks now compared to, let's say, January. There you see that the world economic growth has been slowing. It will slow down this year compared to what was estimated in January, with 1%. And so the world economic growth for this year is predicted to be 3.6%. And for 2023 also 3.6%, but that is relatively still okay. The China's downturn actually is much steeper. China's economic growth in 2021 was 8.1% still. I mentioned already a successful performance, ironically enough, in the COVID times. But for this year, the IMF predicts for China almost a halving of that growth performance. And in 2022, only a slight moving up to about 5% of economic growth. This might be the sustainable level, but it still shows an enormous shock and downturn of the Chinese economic performance in a very short period of time. This obviously is subject to a lot of uncertainties. The jury is still out on how COVID goes and how the war of Ukraine impacts commodity prices. But it's for sure the whole economic the world economic environment will slow down, and therefore all of us are impacted, including China, but China a little bit more than other countries.
Thank you, Ron. Christy.
May I say one more thing, Federico?
Sure,
Excuse me,
of
before you
course.
give. Yeah, without having a debate with Christy about what is wisdom in terms of COVID strategy. But you know, Christy, if I may maybe so honest with you, the fact that you have 1.4 billion people, it can never be an excuse to have the balance not correct. I mean, there's God knows how many people in the rest of the world. The rest of the world doesn't have these lockdowns anymore. And the rest of the world, I mean, that's a lot more people than the 1.4 billion. The rest of the world doesn't have hospitals that are swamped with patients. On the contrary, I think in most, if not all countries in the world, most restrictions are gone, and the hospitals have, in terms of number of patients, have hardly any COVID patients. So there's something. It cannot be that Chinese people are more vulnerable for COVID. So something went wrong in finding the right balance between try to protect the health system, which is understandable. You mentioned it. You don't want to have your hospital swamped, but something went wrong in exiting basically these lockdowns. The rest of the world, and that is a large part of the world population, managed to find that balance better than China. And I don't see any, unfortunately, any move in China towards to let go a little bit. Because if you don't let go, you're in lockdowns for not for 1 or 2 years, but for indefinitely. This, if I were living in China, I would be quite worried about it, actually. Yeah.
Totally agree, Ron. Christy, what lies ahead, not only for China, but for global value chains, not only in China, but in Asia in general?
Thank you, Federico. I think before to answer your question, I just want to say, Ron, I completely agree with you. I agree the rest of the country are open and China needs to considering a different solution for us. I think everyone learned from their wrongs. So we deal with our own situation with our own solutions. I guess now Europe, you guys have found your own solution that is customized for your country, which is great. I'm also jealous every time when I go on Instagram to see all of my friends are traveling, go to the swim in the ocean, and go do different things and meet their friends. I'm also jealous as well. I wish I can go out and then to learn from a different culture and everything. But I think right now, from my point of view, we're also frustrated to be in this kind of situation, but we also understand why the solution it is what it is right now. So I guess all of us here that is in China, we're just being very patient with the government's solution at the moment. And in terms of question that Federico, you asked me, what lies ahead for the global value chain in Asia? I think technology is needed for growth and resilience. Despite the current landscape, the global shift to a technology-driven new economy will continue, and technological ready country will be able to respond to managed distortion more smoothly at a low cost. At the lower cost, most importantly, the region realized the need to achieve compatibility between regional integration and globalization. In my opinion, cross-border production networks will be stronger than ever. So I think overall in Asia, it's all about collaborations nowadays. We also have a different policies with the rest of the Asian countries. So you can see some of the things are moving forward at the moment.
Thank you, Christy. Lucy, what China's strategic focus and policy orientation on new global value chain restructuring?
Thank you. And also I agree with Christy saying that currently we can be patient at the current stage. That's the only thing we can do. And so the green and digital and innovation economy and urbanization are the theme of China's current strategic focus. And China's super large domestic market is an important advantage for the development of a dual circulation strategy. On the one hand, to improve the self-efficiency, and on the other hand, rise the share of the world trade. The new pattern of the dual circulation development has become the major strategic guide for the China's overall development during the current 5 years plan, start from 2021. And China aims to expand its domestic market demand and improve the scale and quality of its imports and maintain the trade balance to ensure the liquidity. And under the technology competition and globalization, the green cooperation has become the new direction, and China embrace international cooperation in the green innovation and transition, also open to the trade and investment on the related technology transfer, as developed countries have more capital support on the research and more expertise. So in the field of environment protection, and China narrowed its negative list for foreign investment and expanded the scope of the preferential policies to provide more convenience for the green tech related foreign companies to enter the China market. And also China is developing its financial center to cultivate and fund innovation and new tech and strengthen its supply capacity. China has been increasingly focused on the green economy, and as it committed to achieving the carbon neutrality and increasing its national investment and adopt stronger measures. So the current 5 years plan support the pilot cities to take the lead in the construction of a sustainable economic system of the low carbon cycle. As China's first carbon trading pilot market, Beijing is working to build China's first global green financial center, and the Beijing Stock Exchange provide capital access to the high-tech and innovative SMEs. And also with the government initiatives, China's insurance service industry is expected to become the world's largest by the mid of 2030s. And in the real economy sector, China's energy mix will change dramatically, and there is a huge room for the growth in the new energy industry chain, such as the PV, solar, wind power, and hydrogen energy. And in the trade of service, China formed a strategic partnership such as the Belt Road Initiative and RCEP to enhance its trade market share and constantly expanding the emerging market and foster its new comparative advantage. And for this 5-year plan calls for manufacturing production chain along with multiple emerging economic clusters led by China to be formed. So yeah, that's for this questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. Stefan, the mobility industry, automotive, railway, and aviation are strong domains in Europe. How do you see the trend for value chains between Europe and Asia, particularly mainland China?
Yes, thank you. So I think let's look back and let's start with the railway. Yeah, Siemens developed a high-speed train. Yeah, Siemens developed also high-speed trains running on way faster tracks than we can do here in Europe. So I think it was a great invention done in Europe, in Germany. Finally, if you look today at the landscape where high-speed trains are popular, running and working, and if you look at the measures of the kilometers of the railway that is already there, then I don't want to come up now with numbers because it will get pretty embarrassing for Europe. it is China as the country who picked up on that and who brought the innovation that was brought in to life to a huge extent. Yeah, and if you look like on these high-speed trains at the moment, I think Knorr-Bremse is still delivering the brakes because German brakes are really awesome. But a lot of the other stuff from the value chain is gone, is now produced in China and also further developed in China. Yeah, so that brings me back to what was with the railway industry. Now, and as a German, the next thing really hurts. Mercedes-Benz, which is the pride of our automotive industry, or one of that, is working together with Geely on just a small car, just a small car. Yeah, so this small car is the first time in history that Europe gets a car that is designed in Europe, but the complete development of the car, the R&D teams are coming from Geely's international team. I say international team because it's not only in China, they get it also from other areas, and it comes from there. And what happens next is this car is also produced in a Chinese factory. So pretty much cost efficient when you compare that with producing in a German factory. And that car will now come to the German market. And if you look only at that car, that will show you a lot where the value chain, it's a very practical example. We don't talk about technology, right? We don't talk about abstract things. We're talking about the design comes still from Europe, from German, from Mercedes-Benz international design team. Yeah, but you see how much of this value chain can switch. And that brings me back to what Ron said about innovation. Yeah, the innovation for this car, yeah, is maybe disruption. So it's more disruption than innovation in this way. But what this car is developed, it's from the digital setup of that. Yeah, is done now in China with a complete new thinking, with a thinking you will probably not get here at the design, at the development teams or the engineer teams of Mercedes-Benz, or when they ever outsource it to some others here in Europe, right? So I think that is also maybe not too much innovation, but enough innovation to grow up in the value chain. So, and that is about the cars. And the last thing is the aviation. The C919, yeah, took now off, and we'll have the first test flights from Shanghai in the next weeks or month or so. And it will go into production very soon. If you look at that plane, I'm not sure about the numbers. I think the orders are around 810 orders for this plane, while Boeing has for similar models around 200 or 300 per year, and Airbus also. Let's say it's around 300. Yeah, so it's a huge number, and okay, this huge number comes from China, mainly. Yeah, Chinese airlines, but that goes again a line in what Lucy said before, and what we said before about the dual circular strategy, so that we have the domestic and the international. Yeah, and my prediction for that is that in 5 years, Airbus and Boeing will have a significant problem to sell airplanes into developing countries in Africa and some in Asia. Yeah, and that brings me also back what Lucy and what Christy mentioned before. It will be related to the BRI. Yeah, and then you can only sustain from a European perspective when you go down really with the pricing, and that could affect the profitability of this airlines. So I think what happens there, and I wanted to show you that as the mobility industry, because it's something we can all, it's more tangible for all of us. Yeah, with these 3 examples, yeah, I think we can learn a lot about how Chinese policymakers, economical system thinks very long term. Yeah, and goes into one direction. Yeah, and it might be there will be ups and downs, and whatever happens now with COVID, that is there. Yeah, I'm not what happens about COVID at the moment. I think we should more look at what are the possibilities, yeah, for the future coming out of such an, let's say, innovation hub. Even they have the foot not on the accelerator, but maybe now on the brake when it comes to like Ron said, but it's still there, and probably very much aligned in this dual circulation strategy that was mentioned before.
Thank you so much, Stefan. 5 years later, we will be able to see. 5 years ago, Stefan already predicted it. So let's see. One question for Ron, in fact, is not only for Ron, I mean, it's initially for Ron, but of course, all of you guys, if you want, can also speak about that and provide your opinion. But as has been said before, well, we are in a difficult situation in Europe and in the world with the war in the Ukraine, with the invasion of the Ukraine. Ron, in the longer term, is there a risk of a long-lasting geopolitical conflict between the open Western world and the closing, introverting Russia-China bloc with fragmentation of economic and communication space? Is a hard question to be answered. It's a hard topic, but well, as all of you know, guys, that let's say the UTEC is a non-political institution, but of course, we need to speak about what is happening right now in the world and provide opinion and try to provide solutions or help or support to solve this issue. So Ron, please, and if anyone wants to say something about that, please also speak.
Yeah. Now, thank you, Federico. The short answer to your question is yes, that risk is there. I will expand a little bit on it. If I may just tag on what Stefan just mentioned about the value chain which China links up to, the dual circulation model, which is in the 5-year plan, as Lucy and Christy mentioned, which is going to give China for sure a window for the coming years. My point is that the window should preferably for China stay open and should further open in terms of, that's why I keep saying, please, China, be alert for the drivers of innovation, because 1.4 billion people want to continue to improve their lives and their livelihood, and so this is from that concern I express my comments. However, and I come to your question, Federico, even if China's value chain, as Stefan described so well, looks fairly well positioned, globally seen. It almost looks like China found a new niche of tagging on innovation elsewhere and developing spin-off innovations or application innovations, using still its relatively low wage costs. The problem is that if you want to maintain, take the mobility examples of Stefan, the cars, the airplanes, and even the high-speed railways. I mean, China is full of high-speed railways. That's why Belt and Road is partly that is why Belt and Road is there, to try to export this construction industry and this infrastructure industry. In other words, China's further development, and not only China's, but I think this goes for everybody on this globe. I do not see any benefit to move from globalization to regionalization. I think it is going to be a step back for all of us. It's going to limit markets. It's going to fragment markets. It's going to reduce the possibility to make use of the comparative advantages that we have, each of us. The wonderful thing in this globalization is that, we can make use of each other's benefits. Stefan gave wonderful examples of how Europe and China can team up, and this is really win-win cooperation. And I think this type of win-win cooperation is severely hampered if we move towards regionalization, if we move towards fragmentation. regionalization sounds so soft and so like, oh, that's nice, you know. In Europe, we do it too with the European Union. So of course, regionalization is always there, and it's going to be part of globalization. But if it comes instead of globalization, then we have a problem. If it comes instead of globalization, then we have a serious problem. All of us, including China. So I think all of us have a strong interest, and I don't want to make it very political, but forgive me, I am a policymaker all my life, so I always have the urge to say, come on, do it like this, don't do it like that, and so forgive me for those wise lessons which I always try to share. But I sincerely hope that our political leaders will not let regionalization and fragmentation be the outcome of what is happening now. What China is doing in COVID it appears to be quite innocent, and give them the time and the patience and so, but it stimulates fragmentation. I mean, producers in Europe are thinking, oh well, let's be patient. But I'm not going to be patient. I need to produce my products. I'm going to find other suppliers of my commodities and what have you, and I'm going to find other outlets for my final products. So supply chain obstacles might quickly and quicker than we might think move into the value chain distribution, globally speaking. So this is not something to underestimate and to just be patient and sit it out. There are negative effects from it. The war in Ukraine, you mentioned it, Federico. On top of the unhealthy rivalry that the United States started with China, it's for me mind-boggling. It's something for a different subject. It's mind-boggling what the United States is doing with its proclaimed rivalry with China. I see nobody winning from it. Certainly not the United States. We all suffer from it. We cannot change that here as EU tech, but it is a factor that is there, and the war in Ukraine only stimulates the further falling apart. It's not that I have a somber day today, but I'm always, you know, an optimistic and positive person. But I cannot be gloomy if I look at this rivalry that the United States proclaimed on China. China's, sorry to say, but continuous inward lookingness and shyness almost to be an actor in the global politics. China cannot stay on the side and just let it happen. And thirdly, what we in Europe make a mess of it again. And even worse, we end up seeing, if we are not careful enough as world community, we might see the emergence again of new dividing lines in the world. Not only political dividing lines, but they have instantly an economic effect. You see already now politicians talking about, you know, it is a struggle between a fight between democracy and autocracy and dictatorship. And then all countries that don't have a Western style democracy, which is the vast majority of the world community, they're all pulled on one mountain of, you know, dictators and what have you. So the mindset of the people, at least talking about Western Europe, the mindset of the people is very much geared towards, you know, the good and the bad, good against evil. And I don't underestimate the public sentiment in that respect. China's reputation as a partner for Europe, which I so desperately want to seek, but China's reputation as a trusted and equal partner of Europe is rapidly getting under stress. And this is very, very bad because it does not only affect the ordinary person in the street here in Europe, but it also affects European companies that might look at other opportunities to find its partners, which is very, very, from an economic point of view, and if you look at the longer run, it's very devastating for the global development as a whole, for peace on this earth, and for the development of Chinese economy as well. So yeah, I'm quite somber about it. Now, I poured out my whole heart to you now, and I'm sure you have something to say to it as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ron. Well, any one of you want to say something about Ron just mentioned about the thoughts he shared with us? No? Okay, let's go.
Let me just say one thing. What Ron said, I think, is very important. Yeah, and it describes a topic that we have all avoided to say today so far, because we said we don't want to go into too much into political discussion, right? But he is describing from a policy standpoint a huge, I would say, risk to the wealth of Europe. Just say, and I'm a European people, sorry, so I'm from Europe, so I see Europe. It is a huge risk for the wealth situation in Europe and European citizens. That also goes along with payments and with payment structures, with international flow of money. And I think what we have seen just for Russia and the sanctions that happened and how far they went with the central banks, yeah, probably more far than everybody else has seen. I see a crack. Yeah, and now let me name another country, just to not to talk about Asia and Europe, Saudi Arabia. Yeah, so in India, yeah, these countries will think a lot about how they can restructure their position in the global world, because nobody wants to really wake up tomorrow morning and see that he has no more money to pay anything because it was just blocked, right? So I think that is the essence that I take out of Ron's, just to put it in one sentence, of what Ron's speak really will lead to. Is that correct?
Sorry, you're absolutely correct, Stefan. I mean, we're shooting ourselves tremendously in the foot in Europe. If I'm desperate, it's more towards my own political leaders here in this part of the world, and in Washington, by the way. So let's, for God's sake, keep what we have, and that is cooperation and benefiting from each other's strength and move forward together. We have so many challenges. I mean, I think Lucy or Christy mentioned the whole green challenge, the whole climate challenge. We have such an enormous, not only challenge, but also opportunity. Again, talking about EU tech, using technology for the good of mankind. I mean, this is the whole green agenda could be a tremendous, let's say, unifier. And it's not only it's simply to do good, it's a necessity for the human beings to survive on this earth. This all is put on hold because of these, Stefan mentioned, cracks. Exactly, it's just like cracks in the system, cracks that are healed very difficult. It takes years to heal it. It takes a few months to cause a crack, and it probably takes years to heal it. It's deeply concerning. I really hope all policymakers, including also policymakers in companies, because companies also make political decisions on where to locate, where to find partners. I hope everybody keeps the window, the eyes open towards cooperation and towards a global market and global value and supply chains.
Thank you, guys. Christy, so after listening to all of that, where is China heading?
I think for the past decades that our government is making an effort to focus on quality, and now we're moving forward into we're really focused on the quantity, but now moving forward we're going on quality. So our government has launched Made in China 2025, which is a state-led industry policy that seeks dominate in a global high-tech manufacturing. So this plan is here to update our manufacturing base by rapidly developing 10 high-tech industries. So some of them are actually electric cars, and then the new energy vehicles, next generation information technology, advanced robotics, and artificial intelligence. And along with this, we also have a rural virtualization strategy aimed to promote and sustain the sustainable development of the countryside, including creating a robust rural economy, some of the people moving back to their hometown from the megacity. As we can see nowadays, it's happened quite often to start their own business in green agriculture, in green agricultural development by using technologies like artificial intelligence in farming for more efficient agricultural production, growing genetically modified crops for high yields, and so on. And not to mention, we also are planning to build, or some of the city already built, smart cities throughout the whole process. So I think we're really leveraging this digital era at the moment, and a lot of people are very looking forward to the rural virtualization strategy.
Thank you, Christy. Lucy, and coming back again about one topic that right now Ron, Stefan has been speaking about, what are the current status and responses of foreign invested companies in China to factors such as the impact of Russian-Ukraine chaos or conflict, pandemic control, etc., that accelerating the global value chain restructuring?
Thank you. So it's very interesting. Despite the supply chain disruption, food and energy shortage, and travel control, face-to-face meeting disruption, most recent survey on the impact of Russian-Ukraine chaos by the EU Chamber on all the EU companies in China shows that most companies respond with no change or even more attractive investment destination of China. I can show you the survey results later, and only a small portion, like 7% of business, are considering pulling them out from the their investment in China. And as exporters and logistic firms transporting auto parts, cars, laptops, and smartphones, they're trying to avoid land routes passing through Russian or the combat zone. Million plus containers now have to find their route by sea, and adding to the costs and threatening to the worsening the global supply chain chaos. So taking the EV industry as example, China remains its most important market despite the decline in sales. The Volkswagen Group is shifting more production out of Europe to China and North America and Latin America to cope with the supply chain issues and building additional capacity. And Tesla also, Tesla performance in China, its key market was ordinary during the pandemic, but it still invested additional capacity in China. And so why China is the right position for their global value chain restructuring? To optimize the supply chain and protect their trade routes, optimize the industrial chain, improve management efficiency. China is in important strategic position in their global value chain layout. And the inflationary pressure has further deteriorated the global automotive supply chain that has already been battling for the component shortage, like the chips for nearly 2 years. So China is still seen as the important market during this COVID chaos, as it's a big consumers market with 400 million middle class consumers. Its urbanization progress and distributed wealth, and also it's a growing market potential. And because like in Europe, it's mostly replaced market. We see that a lot of first-time purchase for many products like home appliance, cars, consumer goods in China. And so they still do manufacturing in China. It's because of the Chinese political orientation on the EV manufacturing, high-tech industry, and the modern infrastructure network like the ports, high-speed trains, and the knowledge of the local talents. And it's highly integrated supply chain, as mentioned by Stefan, with the cluster of suppliers as China sits in the center of the battery supply chain for the EV industry. And as foreign investors, you might want to close to your market partners, customers, and use China as a business hub to get access to the RCEP, Belt and Road countries. And also China made the commitment on the promoting the green economy, which is aligned with the EU goal, and the high standard of the environment policy affect the relationship between EU and the ASEAN countries. So that makes China the go-to place for European SMEs for accessing their biggest market. So that's for this question. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. Stefan, do you see a link between China's economic model and its increase in the value chain?
Let me just refer to the very first question I was answering today when we talked about the post-COVID, and I mentioned Deng Xiaoping, when he came up with the first special economic zone. I think it was in Shenzhen, right? So, and that was a small village, and with about 20,000 fishermen, probably at the beginning. And now look at what the Greater Bay Area is, right? So, and this could only happen because I believe that the very special economic model in China allows special economic zones. In Hainan, you have also now one special economic zone for trade. So before COVID, it was perfectly designed with a harbor, the Hawaii of Asia, with a harbor for all the transportation coming in and going out without, you haven't had to go to mainland China. So it was a strategic positioning. And if you look what the Greater Bay Area is today and how it is structured between all the cities, and it's not one city, it is Macau, yeah, more the startup and the financial hub. It is Hong Kong, yeah, losing a lot out to Shenzhen, to the city next. It's Guangzhou. It's Nanjing with more or less production hubs when you have that there out of that. So these are planned areas, right? And they are very, I would say, if you look back the last 30 years, very successful growing. Yeah. Look what they did with the industry, the digital financial industry that was designed in the Greater Bay Area. Yeah. So I believe that can only happen because of policymakers. Now back to what Ron said before, because of policymakers set rules, but set also rules for only special areas, try and error and build it there. It's what's happening in the moment with the digital yuan. Originally it was done in China. Now it moves out, and we will now try it in Hong Kong. Hong Kong is very close, but it still has different. So if that is a test bed where you can test real life, yeah, how the digital currency would work with exchange. We are here in Europe for this particular thing for central bank digital money. We're still discussing and planning how a sandbag could be. So we are way behind. We are way behind for a lot of reasons, because of when we look at Europe, it is a wonderful economic model, yeah, that is driven by 25, 27, 28 countries, how you look at it. And this is very difficult to get that in one direction. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, even if we try in Europe to plan top down, yeah, these plans are not valid for a very long time. They get changed over time. Yeah. So and all these countries, just look at the nuclear plants and if they're green or not. There is also a crack within the European Union about that. And if you have a country that has a system where a lot of things are aligned top down, but to step up in the ladder only goes by reward that you reach goals, yeah, and not just stepping up with political ideas. I think that is something that can help to grow in an area. And the index that I always looking at when I look at China is the poverty index, yeah, because if you see the poverty index, how that went back with such a model, so there must be something that it worked really well.
Thank you, Stefan. Well, time is running and we only have a few minutes to go. I just wanted to at least answer to one of the questions of the audience. Kwon said, as a practitioner of Sino-Dutch cooperation, I am concerned about the direction of global development in a more regionalized way. Policymakers, we have been speaking about that, can be swayed by us, but in what ways can we strengthen and intensify EU-China cooperation on a sectoral basis? Any one of you, Ron, you are agreeing? If you want, you can speak, or Stefan, I mean, whatever, or anyone.
I can say very briefly again. I fully agree with that. I mean, I wish we could indeed, and we can, but it requires a lot of the mindset is going into the wrong direction, as I said. I mean, we're talking in the context I have in the Dutch private sector are mainly about, sorry, I'm not going to have my solar panels made in China anymore. For all kinds of reasons, we don't know anymore. They're not talking about the success of Deng Xiaoping. They're not as cost efficient anymore as in the past. There are all kinds of human rights issues in China, the Uyghurs and what have you. The supply chain is not working. I think I will. And then there are politicians who even say, you know, we better not be dependent on China anymore. So there is a lot of push now towards shortening the supply chain, shortening the regionalization, more regionalization and fragmentation. It is now seen, it is by a lot of policymakers and even by companies. If I look at the big Dutch banks, they promote now regional economic projects and cooperation. Rabobank, one of the biggest banks in the Netherlands, is saying we should all aim to shorten supply chain because it is better for the environment, it is more cost effective and politically more, let's say, certain. Now, as an economist, I say this is not founded at all in economic wisdom. And on top of that, as a globalist and as somebody who wants my children and our children to grow up in a peaceful world, I don't like fragmentation and regionalization because it means, again, that we're losing each other in our common future. So, but there's a long way to go to turn that mindset around. The war in Ukraine further stimulates the idea that we should take care of ourselves first and foremost before we dare to seek partnership with that scary outside world, which has its completely different governance systems and what have you. Don't underestimate, I say to my Chinese friends, the world is not the same as half a year ago. Don't underestimate it, please. I'm not saying this to criticize anybody, but ourselves here in Europe, as Stefan said. But please don't underestimate what is set in motion in the minds of people.
Thank you so much, Ron. Well, we are almost finishing this really very interesting event and webinar. I want just to get from each one of you, from four of you, a last, let's say, statement, a last sentence, a last message of whatever we have been speaking about today here in the morning. So let's start with Christy. Your final message, Christy, your final statement, sentence in a nutshell.
My statement, there's so much that I want to say, but I guess I would say I still believe in globalization, and I think the world will only get better when we all work together with our strength, and not just to be sort of sort of isolated in a different way. So I guess globalization will be something that I'm very rooting forward to.
Thank you, Christy. Thank you so much. Lucy, your turn. Your last message, your last sentence.
Thank you, Federico. So in terms of answering Quinn's question, also for the closure of the last question, about the EU and China cooperation, I think first it's important to understand China's current strategic focus and policy orientation in depth and identify the projects opportunities that fit in the China development strategies. And second, try to explore new model and cooperations with local partners and share resources such as their channels to achieve win-win. For instance, like Volkswagen, it's taking the advantage in cooperation with local companies to obtain the resource like financial incentive, subsidies and tax relief by forging strong partnership with First Auto Works, while the other foreign companies in the same industry had to leave China market. So as a green manufacturing system was put forward, the green cooperation has become a new direction to develop the strong cooperation between EU and China. And as Stefan mentioned, Hainan and also Beijing as the pilot areas, free trade zone and business hub provide financial support through their expansion of financial incentives and policies. And so Beijing will take the lead to build their, global consumption center and become the core node of a domestic cycle and a key business hub for the dual circulation strategy. And in the meanwhile, we cannot ignore the big market of the lower tier cities, as mentioned by Christy, the China's current urbanization strategy. And in addition, it's important we can also think about the possible industry university research cooperation related to the low carbon clean energy, and the joint research is a great tool for at your stepping stone to integrate in the China's market and consider to collaborate with China's related government authorities like the Ministry of Commerce and National Development and Reform Committee, and also like MIIT, Ministry of Information, and a high-end think tank. Based on my experience, it works very well, and also actively participate in their forum and projects, and provide research and training with strong expertise on the environment protection related issues. For example, like recently China
Lucy, sorry, we are running out of time. Sorry for that.
Okay,
I think it's clear your message, and now we need to give Stefan a few seconds to provide his final statement or sentence or message, and of course closing with Ron. Stefan, sorry for that, Lucy. Huh?
It's fine. Yeah. Also, anyways, above mentioned tips will help you play a better role in the industrialization, urbanization progress, and achieve sustainable development in China market. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. Stefan, please.
Okay, so I think what Lucy mentioned, the global climate change, that is a huge issue. What Ron said, globalization is key. That is what I think all can sign off. And we also figured out today, Europe shouldn't isolate itself. So what is the next thing? And we mentioned RCEP, we mentioned Belt and Road. So I believe that it is a good time to prevent that by building an innovation path between Europe and China along the Belt and Road, but also, and that is also from a German side, from the interest, also build a kind of innovation bridge between the strong economies in Europe, which I consider Germany is one of them, and the strongest economy in the RCEP region, which is China, and using this as a hub for conquering each of these markets together. So that was my final word. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan. Ron, your final statement for today's.
Thank you so much. I said already much too much, but let me first say I agree fully with previous speakers, and in particular what Stefan said on what we in Europe and China could set up, should set up. My last sentence would be maintain global supply chains. Let's try to maintain and restore, where possible, global thinking, global supply chains, and say no to fragmentation and regionalization.
Thank you, Ron. So that was the last question and the last message in this very interesting digital event today. Thank you all for joining us today. We hope that all of you enjoyed it. Special thanks, of course, to our four great panelists, Ron, Lucy, Christy, Stefan. Really amazing share the panel with you all. Now we will provide, as always, a small gift for all of you in the name of the UTEC, also in the name of the European Senate of Economy and Technology. My colleague Benedict should be giving you this gift, but since it's holiday in Germany today, I will do it myself. So here, if I can share my screen, let me see if I can share my screen. I will do it right now. Here we are providing you as a gift to all of you of our 3 certificates. We, as you know, the UTEC is always trying to help and to support the reduction of CO2 consumption, and trying to help and support the more environmental and sustainable activities. Therefore, we are planting trees in Africa. And today we are planting a tree in the name of Ron Keller, another tree in the name of Lucy Luo, another tree, of course, in the name of Stefan Horvath, and another tree in the name of Christy Zhao. Thank you for your, let's say, support to today's event. Thank you so much for being here again, and well, to all of the audience, thank you for joining us, and see you in our next activities in the China Alliance and in the UTEC. Thank you so much. Take care and see you soon. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.